Hey guys, what's shaking? So, just got back from Vancouver. Was out there for about 3 days with the Screen Composers Guild of Canada, and we're presenting our new model contract. An amazing document. The Guild first created it like 20 years ago, and basically what it is, it's like a recipe. It's a contract you can use and take bits and pieces of. It's a really great equitable contract between a producer and a filmmaker, or a producer and a screen composer, that gives them all the rights they need to exploit the product with your music synced to picture, and also protects you and your rights. Yeah, we were out in Vancouver. What a great time. Met so many cool composers out there, both Guild members and people who are not yet Guild members, but I hope will be soon. We just had a great time. What an amazing city. I used to live in Vancouver. That's 20 years ago. Oh my God. I used to work as a shift supervisor at a Starbucks, and it was Starbucks number 11. It was one of the first unionized Starbucks in North America, actually, which is crazy. And back then, I mean, there's a Starbucks on every street corner. Oddly enough, here's a weird story. This is sort of a business thing. The Starbucks that did the best was, or the Starbuckses, the two Starbucks that did the best were kitty corner from one another. You could look across the street and see the other one. So think about that the next time you think about competition between composers or competition in the music business. Okay, so what are we talking about when we talk about competition in film scoring or music business? You often hear the term, they're my competition, or that's the competition, thrown around in reference to other composers. But I mean, what do we really mean by that? Like in athletics, if you're in competition with somebody else, the winner of that competition will be faster, stronger, throw farther. They will beat you on these quantifiable measurements. We don't have that in the arts or in entertainment. I mean, yeah, you could look at box office, but that doesn't really apply to film scores. So what are you really competing on? Well, I think that's where we actually get a little bit messed up, and I think it's worth looking into just a little bit deeper. What is a competitive advantage? I mean, when you're looking at businesses, you're always thinking about what does this business have that no other business does? Or do they just do something slightly better than anyone else? So one of the aspects in the business world is called a USP, or unique selling proposition. Probably not a new concept for most of you, but I don't think it's something that we really, as composers and musicians and artists, apply to our own businesses often enough. Especially nowadays, we see something that has been successful and then we try to emulate that thing. The latest movie comes out, the latest blockbuster that's done really well, we look at what the score is. The latest TV show on Netflix that's the hottest thing, we look to that and we say, what's going on there? And almost unconsciously, I think we try to replicate that. And we get lost in this narrative that just because it's being part of something popular, that's somehow something that we should do as well. I would say let's try and question that. If you look at sports and athletics, competition is generally seen as something really positive. So you want to feel that competitive edge. You want to look at somebody else who's doing something, who is excellent, who has gained a mastery, and who is exceeding and breaking records in their field. Because you look at them and you go, I'm going to try and beat that. I'm going to beat that record. I'm going to go further than they've gone. I'm going to go faster than they've gone. For creative people in general, there isn't really an earmark for any of that stuff. How do you compose better than somebody? How do you write better music? It's very subjective. Like what you might think is great, somebody else might think is trash. What you think is interesting is boring to somebody else. So there are lots of negative aspects of competition when you're considering artistic work, and it might be worthwhile to think about it in a different way. So what are some of the negative aspects of competition? For us, I think, as artistic people, the idea of competition can lead to too much external focus in terms of where you're getting your motivation from, the energy back from what you're doing, right? So external motivators are things like praise, they're things like getting awards, they're things like being part of the coolest project, they're things like getting lots of money for something. Internal motivators are things like the pride you feel in your work, the idea that you're focused on mastery and bettering your craft constantly, you're consistently working towards that. An internal motivator can be something like the enjoyment of the actual process of writing to film, or working with a collaborator, or solving a problem. If you focus too much on the external, you're going to run into a situation where that juice is tapped out if you're not constantly filling up that bucket. If you're not constantly getting validation or winning awards or getting lots of money or getting to that next step, that next level in your career goals, then you're going to find yourself with less energy, finding yourself getting depressed and really fighting a hard battle, because there's nothing other than that motivating you, and sometimes it can feel kind of hopeless because you get so many no's in this business. Internal motivators, on the other hand, are usually driven by passion. They're usually driven by something very pure inside you and is focused on things that are much more sustainable and that will give you sustenance, like good food. Like the idea of mastery. If you're sitting there and you're just working on this orchestration and you're trying to make it sound better and better and better, that work in itself is the reward in a way. That the result of that work, you getting better, you being able to say, yes, I was able to do this better, faster this week than I was last. That's a great motivator. That'll keep you going much longer. Another aspect of competition is when you're always looking at what the other person is doing, you're focused outside of yourself and you're also not focused on doing the work you should be doing. You're on Facebook, you're on Twitter, you're on whatever, looking at whatever else the composer that you're looking at has achieved, what they've done, how far they've gotten, and how great their music might be or how much you wish your music sounded like that. So the way to combat that really is to get back inside, block off the outside world, and constantly focus on that deep work, that internal kind of mastery of your subject, mastery of your art, and keep working on just creating the best work that you can and improving constantly. Too much focus on low-level marketing activities is another negative aspect of competition. When you look at this industry, it's really all about real, meaningful relationships. You don't really hear a lot about, oh yeah, this guy, I've been working with him for years because he just sort of spammed me on IMDb and we ended up being best friends forever. Usually is they met somewhere, they had a real meaningful connection, and that's what was the seed of their relationship that then built into something more and more over the course of many projects and working together. So I would say instead of focusing on that low-level marketing stuff, try to focus on really cultivating deep, real, meaningful relationships both online and in person. And finally, one of the negative aspects is looking at what everyone has, the material aspects of it, and thinking that you need just that one extra piece of gear or that other plugin or that other whatever it is, that sample library, in order to really get you set up so that you can be competitive. I think there is some truth to the idea that it can be a lot about cutting edge, what the latest sound is, and you need to be developing or keeping up with that to a certain degree. But I think you have to be careful not to be completely focused on that or completely not focused, i.e. you're distracted by all of that. So you're always hunting after the latest thing and you're thinking you're making progress. You have this idea, it sort of tricks you into thinking you're being productive because, oh, I got this new thing, I install it, I learned how to use it. But have you written any music? Have you reached out to someone and really said, can we get this next project going? Have you worked on a project yourself and really developed something great? Have you worked on your album? Have you worked on your music at all? Okay, so we talked about some of the negatives. What about the positive sides of competition? Where can competition lead you in a good direction, or what are some different ways to think about competition? So I think the best competition there is the competition that you have against yourself. You say, I was this good today, and tomorrow I want to be this much better. You're focusing on your technique, you're focusing on your craft, you're focusing on learning, continuous learning, always trying to improve what you're doing, always trying to seek out new knowledge, new techniques, and improve on what you had before. Another idea is don't compete, collaborate. So work with somebody else that will challenge you, work with somebody else who has strengths where you might be weak, work with someone who has a different network than you do. Working with other people is a win-win thing. If you choose the right people, you're only going to expand all the things you have. With two people, you can take on twice as much work. Does that mean you're going to get paid twice as much? Not necessarily, but you'll get paid as much as if you were doing half the number of projects on your own, but you'll be getting twice as much experience, working with twice as many filmmakers, and getting twice as much experience doing different things. You'll also be working with someone who has some strengths probably that you don't have, and you're going to learn a lot from working with them. They're going to improve the music that you both write together, and you in turn will improve the music that they make or that you make together by adding whatever it is that you are strong in. When you're stuck on something or when you're feeling up against a wall or just creatively blocked, that other person can be an absolute godsend to help you break out of that. They can act as a champion, they can inspire you, they can surprise you with the kind of work they're doing, and they can encourage you when you're feeling down or not motivated to do the work you want to do. One of the biggest things to focus on in terms of competition is your own USP or unique selling proposition. Kind of a salesy business word, but it does actually make sense. What you want to think about is the thing that really makes you you. So often I think it's really, really attractive to look after that amazing sound you've heard. Like let's say it's John Williams, let's say it's Alan Silvestri, let's say it's Hans Zimmer, whatever it is, whoever it is. When you're thinking about these like high echelon gods of the world in terms of what you do, you don't want to imitate them and simply become a second, third, fifth, 15th, 25th, etc. version of that, because that's not helpful to anybody. I think one of the best ways to cultivate great competition is to really keep working on the thing that makes you you. I think it has to do with just what drives you, what gets you off, what is the thing that really makes you excited, what's that sort of quirky way that you have of working, or the quirky sound that you have. Maybe it's even a way that you write things that's not really like correct, but just has a really neat sound to it in the end. It might be the way that you work, it might be your workflow, it might be the way that you create sounds, it might be the way that you interact with filmmakers, it might be your imagination, it might be the way you help tell stories. All of these things will contribute to an idea about who you are and will give people more reason to work with you because it's something specific that they can latch onto as opposed to a general kind of homogeneous, genreless kind of idea. People like to really know who you are, what you do, and what makes you special, so that when they involve you in their project, which they believe is special, unique, unlike anything else, they'll know exactly how you slot into that. And so finally, I think one of the best ways that you can stay competitive in the business is to create things of value that are outside of the projects you're working in. Working on an album, being a live performer, playing on other people's stuff, being a storyteller in some other fashion, going and speaking at events, whatever your unique thing is. Maybe you're good at public speaking, maybe you're great at writing and you keep a blog, maybe you're fantastic at analysis and you can really break apart scores or break apart stories. There are an endless number of things that you could do and create a project about or create work about that you can then put into the world and add some value, and then people look back and that slowly builds your reputation in the world. Alright, that's it for me today. Hope you enjoyed this. Hopefully it was helpful and inspiring. If you liked the vlog, please hit subscribe, hit like for the video if you liked it, and we'll see you guys in the next one.